Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It is so good to be back. It is so good to see everyone. Hello. I am pumped to dive into some topics today. So, what are the big things we can discuss today? There's going to be a few things, of course, that we can dive into. First of all, the March NPD results for the US market did just release this morning, and there are some very interesting things in there, right? We found out some very big stuff. So, a few things to point off right out of the bat. PlayStation 5, across the first 5 months of its release, is now officially the fastest selling console ever in the United States in both dollar sales and units. So that means in the first 5 months, it's making more money than any console ever has in history, and it's also selling faster than any console in history. So some pretty insane results there for the PlayStation 5. So we can dive into that. We can talk about that. We found out through NPD that Spider-Man Miles Morales has already outsold the lifetime sales of massive juggernauts like Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us Part 2 in the United States. That is a pretty insane thing to see, and we are seeing a bunch of people freaking out about that online. That tweet I sent out is blowing up because it is pretty crazy. So we can talk about that, what it means for Insomniac, what it means for Spider-Man in the future. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is now officially the best-selling racing game ever in the United States, ever. That is right. No racing game has ever sold more than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, so that is crazy. And then, of course, the other thing that I'm sure there's going to be a whole bunch of questions about is going to be around the Jason Schreier article that came out in regards to Sony Bend Studio, Days Gone 2's pitch getting rejected, a Last of Us remake, Sony focusing on AAA brands, right? A whole bunch of crazy stuff with that we can discuss. I have some thoughts on it for sure. I'm glad I actually had a few days to sit on it and think on it before I did a really quick gut reaction to it. So we can talk about that article, what all it means, and so much more. So for anyone, if this is your first time ever in the live chat, because I keep getting more and more new people following me on Twitter, the way this show works, the way this stream works, it's 100% driven by you. So you need to drop your comments, drop your questions down into chat, and I get to as many of them as possible. Now there's two ways to do that. First of all, of course, there's the free method. You literally just type a question, you hit enter, it pops into chat, and I get to as many of those free questions as I possibly can. However, if you want to 100% guarantee that I get to your question, the way to do that is going to be the super chat option. You just type in a donation of whatever amount you want. It hits me with an alert, and I get to super chats first, right? They get priority because that is what people are paying for. But don't feel pressured. Don't feel obligated to donate in chat at all. That's really just there as a way to support me and guarantee that your question answered. But I promise I'm going to hit as many free ones as I possibly can. I always do. So to have a good show today, let's get those questions popping and let's dive into chat. Enough of my prelude. Actually, wait, let me do one more thing. Sorry, I almost forgot. Before I get into questions, just so we have some context around some stuff, here is your NPD results for software for March. I'm going to run through the top 20 just really fast. Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War hits number 1. Incredible result for Call of Duty. It just keeps being a complete monster. Number 2, Monster Hunter Rise. Yeah, Monster Hunter Rise with a great debut. It's the second biggest launch ever for the Monster Hunter franchise, only behind Monster Hunter World. Outriders at number 3. That is very good, y'all, because Outriders only had a few days of tracking, not even a week, right? So it hit top 3 with only a few days as a new IP. So clearly huge sales for Outriders. Super Mario 3D World at number 4. Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales at number 5. It has not left the top 5 since launch, since November when it came out. Miles Morales has been top 5 every single month, so amazing legs there. Mario Kart 8 comes in at number 6. Assassin's Creed Valhalla at number 7. Great legs for Valhalla too, by the way. Animal Crossing New Horizons at number 8. Super Mario 3D All-Stars at number 9. It got a big boost because it's coming up on, the end of its sales. It went from number 16 to number 9. Minecraft at number 10, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 at number 11, Smash Bros. Ultimate at number 12, Pokemon Sword and Shield at number 13, Mortal Kombat 11 at number 14, Crash Bandicoot 4 gets a big boost up to number 15 thanks to the next generation enhancements. Breath of the Wild number 16, Madden 21 number 17, NBA number 18, Super Mario Party number 19, and FIFA 21 number 20. Okay, there's your top 20 in the US NPD for the month of March. All right, let me start diving into questions now, and let's get rocking. First one here, we got a super chat from Timmer72299 with a 5. Thank you so much, Timmer, saying, "Hi, Benji, not gaming related, but with the Mickey Mouse IP valued at $9 billion as of 2014, do you think someone will buy it someday? Never say never." Well, first of all, Timmer, it is crazy, and to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Mickey Mouse is worth even more than that. Do I expect anyone to ever be able to buy him? No, because Disney is such an absolute juggernaut. It's hard for me to envision anyone actually being able to acquire Disney. Because here's the thing, you're not going to get Mickey Mouse without Disney, right? They're one in the same. Like, in fact, it's so much so that Disney keeps basically paying, and in some ways through lobbying, to try to extend copyright laws. So yeah, it's hard for me to imagine, just because, like I said, you're not getting Mickey Mouse without Disney, and Disney's so big, they're the ones acquiring people, not being acquired. So that one would shock me. Like you said, never say never. We see crazy stuff, but put it this way, Mickey's not going anywhere without Disney, right? They will never let go of Mickey Mouse if they can. So thank you for the super chat. Hard for me to envision it, but like you said, never say never. All right, and I bet you it's even way more than that now. Like you said, it was $9 billion estimate back in 2014, and Disney as a company has only grown since then, right? Disney's much bigger now than they were in 2014. So to try and get that away now, it would be even more, right? Even more than that. All right. Oh, we just had a 10 super chat drop here from Benji. Thank you for the 10. Hi, Benji. You were the first sales analyst saying Miles Morales was selling great. People were looking at the UK charts first week and calling it a bust. Bravo. Why Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sales are bad for Mario Kart 9, your take. So first of all, thank you for that super kind comment, Benji. You know, I don't give myself too many pats on the back, but here's the thing. I try to make sure whenever I report stuff to you guys, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's here on YouTube, I'm trying my best to make sure that I'm giving you like accurate, thoughtful analysis, right? I don't try to just like really quick throw hot takes out there, because here's the thing. Whenever people just start throwing out hot takes, that very oftentimes leads to misinformation. Now here, let me be very clear here, y'all. I am not perfect, right? Just like anybody. Any human's going to make mistakes. We're all going to make errors. Sometimes I'm going to tell you something that's not 100% right. But I'm going to do my absolute best every time to make sure that I am. And the way to ensure that is to not just look at UK charts, right? A lot of people, and I'm not trying to take away from the UK charts. I think they're very important. I really admire what Christopher Dring and GameIndustry.biz do, publishing those charts every day. Like, they're a great source of information. But if you're going to like really accurately get sales results across, you don't want to just depend on one small piece of data, right? So that's why, like, I was really keeping an eye on Spidey in multiple ways, right? I was watching what it was doing in the UK early on, but then I was also watching to see how Spidey was placing in NPD charts with digital. I was trying to watch its weekly trends, its monthly trends, and yeah, it became very clear to me even early on that Miles Morales was performing really well. And there was a lot of stuff out there saying that it wasn't. And like you said, it was really people latching on to just one data point, which often happens with UK charts because they're the very first charts that come out, right? Your very first info that you're going to get, they hit really fast. And so many people form things off of that. And again, there's just way more that needs to be in there. And also keep in mind that those UK charts right off the bat, right, they don't include digital. Now later on, they usually do add digital into these charts, but that comes a little bit later. The very first charts you get are only physical. And as we've seen, digital just keeps growing and growing. So yeah, Miles, it's been very clear it's performing well for a while, and so much so now that, yeah, it's overtook The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima in the US. That's completely insane. Another home run for Insomniac, and this is well on its way to 10, 15 million sales. And in regards to it's also another great question for your second part here, saying why does Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sales are bad for Mario Kart 9? You know, it is interesting. I think that's part of why it's been so long since we've seen a new Mario Kart, right? Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is just a re-release of Mario Kart 8 that came out on the Wii U. So we haven't had a truly new Mario Kart in years and years and years, right? This is probably, I would have to go take a look, but I'm fairly confident this is probably the longest gap ever for Mario Kart without a new release. So yeah, that's part of why it's taking 9 so long. I'm not one of those people that thinks like, oh, you just can't make a Mario Kart 9 because 8 is so successful and plays so well, right? Because I do see this sentiment out there. I see some people saying, well, why do you even need Mario Kart 9 since Mario Kart 8 is so big? And here's the thing, like, there's still a lot you could do with Mario Kart, right? You could turn it basically into the Smash Brothers of racing, and I think it would do really, really big. Now, yes, that might feel a little weird, and I know they toyed with that a little bit in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, right? They added some Splatoon characters, they did the Zelda stuff, but I'm saying you could go even bigger than that, right? You could add tons and tons of characters and tons of race themes of, you know, tracks from all across the place, and look at how big that's been for Smash, right? So my personal opinion is that that's where you take Mario Kart next. I would say add in way more characters, and I would also say expand that single player offering, because really there's not a ton of single player there. Like, it's fun going through the various cups, but maybe also like a more structured race, like career path, quote quote, through Mario Kart would be fun. So yeah, it is why we're seeing such a large gap. They're in no rush to rush Mario Kart 9 out because 8 is doing so big, but we will see it eventually, right? It's not going to be one of those things you're never going to get Mario Kart 9. It just might take a while. We've got Vignesh here, Vignesh Krishnan. I hope I'm saying that correctly. With a 40 here, saying you're awesome, Benji. Cheers from India. Thank you so much, Vignesh. It's very kind of you. I really appreciate it. I will tell you what, you know, I've said this multiple times before. I have so many nice followers from India. Seriously, I have noticed in particular, just to give a shout out to India, man, some of the nicest, most interactive people I have on my Twitter account are from India. It seems like a very awesome people and an awesome place. So shout out to India, and thank you so much for the kind compliment. Timmer here. Timmer72299 with a second super chat, a 10. Thank you so much, Timmer, or Timer. It's probably Timer. I realized that a while ago that that's probably how you say your name, but I just go with Timmer because it's like tradition. Do you think someone buying the Pokemon Company, ooh, that's interesting, would be considered a gigaton and would be a top 2 to 3 news story in the industry, aside from someone buying Nintendo itself? You know, that is a fascinating question because technically it could happen, right? Pokemon Company is not wholly owned by Nintendo, so it is actually possible that something like that could happen. Now, I'm going to rank it as a long shot because the cost would be astronomical. And also, if you're going to buy the Pokemon Company, clearly their value is really tied with Pokemon. Hence, look at, you know, I mean, it's all tied together. So, I mean, you basically would be buying it for essentially one IP. And yes, it's like basically one of the biggest IPs of all time in the world, but you'd be paying so much money. I mean, it's possible, right? If something like that were to happen, yes, you're looking at one of the biggest news stories we have ever seen, right? It would be colossal. But, I mean, colossal. Like you said, it might be right up there with just if someone could buy Nintendo. So it would be gigantic, but man, the price tag on that would be nuts, right? Like, it'd be crazy. I'd be very curious to see what that would actually sell for. It would be tens of billions of dollars. I mean, billions and billions and billions. So hard for me to envision someone outright buying the entire Pokemon Company, but you never know. You never know. But I'm going to rank it as unlikely, but if it happened, it'd be crazy. Anthony Johnson here with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Anthony. Outriders is a huge success, but on VGC, retail copies are 80% PS in the UK. Do you know US sales? Did Game Pass cannibalize sales for Xbox? Thoughts? Well, we actually have a direct answer to this, and the answer is no. In fact, Outriders got cannibalized almost none. If anything, Outriders here is a prime example, at least in the US, right? It might be different in other markets. But at the very least in the US, the Outriders is a shining example that Game Pass does not necessarily one-to-one cannibalize sales. And what is that proof, right? What is this proof that I'm speaking of? It ranked at the exact same placement on both PlayStation and Xbox. It was the number 3 best-selling game of the month on PlayStation, and it was the number 3 best-selling game of the month on Xbox. So in other words, in terms of ranking, it was the exact same. Now, of course, PlayStation did actually shift more copies, considering it has a larger install base. So number 3 on a PlayStation chart typically is going to mean a higher volume of units, just because there's more consoles out there than there is of the Xbox. But in terms of ranking, right, which is really what you want to look at for cannibalization, in my opinion, right? You want to look when it's multi-platform, not when it's exclusive. Ranking is going to tell you a lot. And the fact Outriders placed the exact same on both says to me it wasn't cannibalized that much. Now, maybe there was a little bit, right? Maybe Xbox fans in particular would have been slightly more interested than PlayStation, and it moves up one placement or something like that, right? But I don't think we're looking at a situation where just magically without Game Pass, it would have been number 1, right? I think that's really unlikely considering it was only number 3. And when I say only, that's a great result, y'all. We're talking Outriders had like 3 days of tracking. This is a tremendous result, but it's in the exact same spot. So it was not cannibalized, at least not much. And what this says to me, Game Pass, I think, just elevated this game. I think it elevated visibility to the game, which also led to increased sales across the board for the game. I've seen some people be like, well, how does Game Pass boost sales? It's essentially free marketing, y'all. You are getting your game into millions of people's hands, and not everyone was going to buy that game, right? I can assure you that not everyone that played Outriders on Game Pass day 1 was going to buy that game. Now, maybe a chunk were, but definitely not all of them. So you have millions of people potentially that weren't ever going to buy your game that are now, if they like it, evangelizing your game. So you're just getting essentially free marketing, especially because Microsoft obviously paid for this game to be on the platform. So I would say, at least in the US, it does not look like Outriders was cannibalized much by Game Pass. And if anything, I think it elevated the game across the board. All right, super chats are clear. Thank you so much for those super chats, everyone. I really appreciate it. JCat saying that JCat has a class right now, but you can't make the live chat. Totally fine, JCat. Totally fine. I just appreciate you. All right, I want to grab a couple PlayStation questions because that's my thumbnail. And I know some people are going to click on this video and not watch the entire chat, right? They're going to click it because they're going to see that headline about PlayStation. So I'm going to go through here and pick out a couple PlayStation questions, and then I'm going to come right back to all of your other chats. But I want to make sure early-ish on in this video I get talking about PlayStation because that's been a hot topic and people are going to want to hear some thoughts on that. Here's one from Teddy Morton. PS Studios is responsible for more new IP than any other over the past 10 years and has taken big chances on relatively small studios. They are not the problem. Jason's article was excellent, but I think the reaction has been over the top. Development priorities can change for a million reasons, and unfortunately, the rank and file rarely get the whole picture. I'm going to be honest with you, Teddy Morton. I think this is a great comment. So here's a couple thoughts on that Jason Schreier article. First of all, I completely agree with you that the article was very well done. Now, to be clear here, I am not preaching to everyone that everyone needs to love Jason Schreier, right? you're going to make your own opinions on anybody, and I'm not going to sit here and force that on anyone, right? But I think Jason Schreier truly is probably the best investigative journalist the video game industry has to offer. Does that mean I agree with every single thing Jason does? Not necessarily. I mean, does that mean me and Jason are buddies? Of course not, right? I mean, I know he knows who I am, but it's not like I'm sitting here as Jason's friend telling you this. I'm just saying he does really good work, okay? For the most part. His deep dives, he really does his research, he really investigates this. And yeah, I think it did get blown over the top for the most part, right? Now, of course, the biggest thing here, I think that's going to be very up to your own interpretation in regards to Jason's article, if you appreciate it or not, is going to be the leaks, right? Leaking games. I'm usually not a huge fan of leaking like unannounced projects, right? You don't see me do much of that, A, because I don't consider myself an insider, and then B, also, I know that that can have a detrimental impact to teams' morale and things like that when things leak. In this particular case, I think that what happened with The Last of Us Remake was so vital to the rest of his piece that I actually get why he leaked that, right? And that was the only game that was truly leaked in here, because the Uncharted game's not being developed right now. It's not in development. It's shelved, okay? So the only thing that truly got leaked was The Last of Us Remake, and that was so vital to the story he was trying to tell about what happened with, you know, the other studio in San Diego. So I get, though, if people don't like that, right? In regards to the overall piece itself and PlayStation Studios and are they in trouble and is this game over? No, it was vastly blown out of proportion. Now, I do think that Sony's in a bit of a bad PR spell, right? And I have tweeted about that, and it's gotten some people really upset, right? Here's the thing. On the internet, you can't make everyone happy, right? The same day that someone literally praises me for a positive PlayStation tweet, I might get somebody calling me a fanboy and they hate me literally 5 minutes later in a separate tweet because I made one tiny criticism of PlayStation. So it's not a big deal to me, but it's hard to win on the internet. Is PlayStation's PR a home run right now? No, I don't think anybody can say that. Even if you are a hardcore PlayStation fan, it is hard for me to say that the PR run they've been on the last couple weeks is like this giant home run. They're just completely killing it in their messaging, right? Their messaging hasn't been great lately. But as a company, right, as a brand, PlayStation's on fire, y'all. Look at how high Spider-Man Miles Morales just sold. Look at PlayStation 5 hardware sales. They are astronomical. Like, PlayStation as a whole, as a brand, is doing fantastic. And a few bad weeks of PR is not going to kill them, okay? Is there things that are worth being upset about? If you love Japan Studio, it really sucks they got closed. If you love, you know, some of these more weird side projects that looks like they might not be getting as much funding in the past, then, you know, you might be a little upset about that. But here's the thing. A big chunk of the core of this article was about how Sony is really focusing on AAA brands, right? AAA IP, things that they know are going to be home runs. This, to me, makes perfect sense if you're in PlayStation's shoes. Let me give you a piece of evidence to think on that I'm sure if you're Jim Ryan, you also look at and helps form this direction. So in only 2 years, 2018, yeah, essentially, yeah. In only 2 years, Sony broke their own franchise record launches 3 times. 3 times in 2 years. God of War originally breaks the record at 3 million in 2018. Spider-Man comes along later that year and breaks that record at 3.3 million at the end of 2018. Then you have The Last of Us again break that record in 2020 with 4 million in 3 days. 3 of your biggest budget, biggest brand games in 3 years only break your record 3 times. I mean, if you're Sony, how do you not focus on AAA, right? How do you not invest in these big projects? You are literally just cranking out home runs. Of course you're going to pursue that, right? Now, do I think it should mean you don't invest in anything else, right? You just abandon some of these beloved, smaller projects, you know, that really a lot of people did help fall in love with PlayStation, right? Some weird stuff like Ape Escape in the past and Parappa the Rapper and like a whole bunch of this stuff. I'm not saying you necessarily need new entries of those franchises. That would be cool. But a lot of this weird, quirky stuff is what made people in the past fall in love with PlayStation. I still think you do need to sprinkle in smaller projects, right? And I think Kena is a prime example of that. Kena, Bridge of Spirits coming up. I'm expecting that to do very, very well. It's not a AAA giant budget game. It's Sony helping out a smaller independent developer. So you are still seeing this from Sony, but I totally get why they are thinking, listen, we need to pump out these massive God of War games, these massive Horizon games. I mean, not only did they break their own record 3 times in 2 years with their biggest launches ever, Sony also broke their record for biggest new IP launches ever with Horizon Zero Dawn, and then just a couple of years later, Ghost of Tsushima. Again, big budget AAA projects. So I get it, right? I completely get why Sony is thinking this way. I would say the biggest potential issue here is them it does appear like they are not leaning as heavily into their Japanese history. And I think a lot of people like PlayStation for that Japanese feel that, the PlayStation consoles had in the past. So I would say that is actually more risky, them losing that identity, than some of the stuff that's floating around like, oh, they're abandoning indies and things like that, because I don't think that's necessarily true. But I would say the thing that's a little like, ooh, I don't know, don't go too far abandoning the Japanese market. Like, we have those Square Enix exclusives coming up, Final Fantasy 16, Forspoken. So clearly they're not entirely abandoning that, but I think that whole Japanese thing is potentially the slippery spot, right? If we get to a point where they're really kind of not paying attention to the Japanese games, A, it hurts them in Japan, but B, I think a lot of people overseas like those projects too. So that's the thing that's riskiest to me, but that's my main takeaway from the article is that, listen, it makes sense if you're Sony, completely makes sense. And I do think the blowback was kind of overly intense. And I think it wouldn't have been so intense if the last couple of weeks PR hadn't been as rough, right? You had multiple things in a row, I think, that kind of led to this article blowing up. You had the PlayStation Store for the PS3 and Vita getting closed. Then you had the news about Japan Studio being restructured and essentially mostly closed down, except for like a very small core staff. So I think you had these kind of articles popping, this kind of news popping, and then this hit right at the end, and that just kind of, boom, sent it over the radar. So yeah, it was mostly blown out of proportion, but I will say I am very bummed about Days Gone 2. I am very bummed about that. It's not a secret. I loved Days Gone. I got the Platinum Trophy. I really wanted Days Gone 2. I think that should have been greenlit. I really do. I think Ben should have gotten one more shot at that IP. We know it was profitable. I think the sequel would have been a big step up in quality over the original. I mean, I really think so. Oftentimes, you see the second entries in franchises really elevate. Look at Uncharted 1 and compare Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2. I'm not telling you that Days Gone 2 would have been the Uncharted 2 moment of that franchise. But what I mean is if you only played Uncharted 1, never would you dream the franchise would become what it did with Uncharted 2 and 3 and 4 and The Lost Legacy, where they evolved it and just made it in this incredible game. I feel like for a game, if it's profitable, which we now know that Days Gone 1 was, you give that studio one more shot, right? Give them one more opportunity to see if they can deliver that moment, that big step up. It's one thing if it loses money, right? If Days Gone 1 comes out and it's a massive financial failure, well, yeah, then you probably don't greenlight a sequel. But we know it's profitable. Jason Schreier has confirmed it was profitable. Jeff Ross himself has said it was profitable. So the game made money. Give them one more shot, Sony. Just one more chance to really deliver on that IP. So, that's a few of my thoughts. I'm sorry. I know that was really long-winded, but it was a huge article. So I apologize. I hope I got across some thoughts there. I hope you guys agree with some of that. If you don't, it's all good. But I know that was a huge article. Split End 89 with a $2 super chat saying, Sony, 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 Sony. Good to see you, Split End 89. Thanks for being the best mod in the business. You rock, man. Okay, let's hit some other questions now after my long-winded Sony speech. All right. Ryan Thompson. Hello, Benji. Based on everything we've gotten so far, who do you think will be the winner of this generation? And what games do you think will determine it? Also, do you think there may be a new competitor like Amazon or Tencent? So this is going to sound like the quote, quote, lazy answer or the, like playing all sides answer. But Ryan, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think that this is the generation that everyone has success. I mean, I really think so. Not everyone's going to be market leader, right? You only have one true market leader. But what I mean by that is they've diversified enough. Like, man, Nintendo, I kind of sent a tweet about this earlier. Switch is literally selling at historical levels, y'all. I mean, listen, Switch is coming for PS2. I don't know if people understand that yet. Right now, if I had to make the bet, do I think Switch is going to sell as much as PS2 did lifetime? I'm still going to say no, just because that PS2 number is so big. But y'all, we are looking at far over 100 million. I mean, far. Tens of millions past 100 million. So it is literally selling at historically high levels, okay? As high as PS5 sales are right now, including this month in March, Switch was still bigger than it. Switch still in the US was ahead in both units and dollar sales. And that's with PS5 being $500 and Switch being $299 or $199. So it shows you there's still a gap there. So Switch is just, I mean, nuclear, okay? It's selling insane. Then you have PlayStation 5 off to a tremendous start, the fastest selling console in US history. And of course, as we're seeing in Europe, it's also blowing up in Europe when it's available. So it's doing these kinds of numbers while being completely supply constrained, constant sellouts. And then you have Microsoft really establishing a foot with Game Pass, right? It was already up to 18 million subscribers back in January. It's clearly obviously going to be higher than that now with stuff like MLB The Show 21 and Outriders hitting it. So Ryan, I really do think everyone's going to be successful. If you're asking me who I think will be market leader, I'm going to say Switch, but if we take Switch out of the equation, because Switch is a little bit weird considering how it falls, right? It falls between PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Like the timing is offset. So Nintendo's kind of their own thing. If we just compare PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S, I do think PS5 is going to outsell it globally. Yeah, I do think so. I think the US market's an interesting race, especially if Microsoft really starts delivering with some big games. A lot of people don't realize this, but the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One are actually fairly close in the US. Like, think about this. Globally, the PS4 completely crushed Xbox One, right? It's not even close. In the US, yes, there's a gap there, but it's actually not that big. Like it's a number, but it's not like some giant, wow, it's 2-3 to 1 to Xbox. Not at all, right? They're very competitive. And that was with the Xbox One being a literal disaster for years, okay? They still kept competitive because the US is a very strong Xbox market. So in the US, y'all, this is going to be a race. PS5 is doing incredible out the gate. Xbox, though, also is going to do very well in the US because I think they're in a much better spot now than they were with the Xbox One. But globally, I got to go PS5, right? PS5, PlayStation is just way too powerful in Europe, way too powerful. So, yeah, I think so. I'm going to go PS5 globally, but US being a tight race, right? That's going to be close. I see both being very successful in the US. Hamishly Ford. Hey Benji, hope you are doing good. Let's say Valve will drop a Half-Life 3 trailer tomorrow. Metrics for that trailer plus how many units Half-Life 3 would sell. You know, Hamishly Ford, this is one of those games that I actually truly believe the hype would be bigger than the sales. And I don't mean that as in I think Half-Life 3 would sell bad, but I don't think Half-Life 3 would sell, for example, at the levels of like a Call of Duty. I know there's insane nostalgia for Half-Life, y'all. But let me be clear about something. A lot of the younger generation has never played a Half-Life game. Like, I'm going to just straight up tell you that. A lot of people that are 18, 19, 17 that play video games, and it's millions of them, they have never played Half-Life. So Half-Life 3 would have to do something to really pull those people in. Now, again, Half-Life 3 is going to be huge no matter what if they release it. This is going to be a multi-million unit selling giant game. I'm not trying to sit here and tell you, oh, Half-Life 3 is going to be some bomb. It would be huge, to be very clear. But I think the trailer views, yeah, would be insane. I think the actual overall hype at the announcement would be enormous, but I think the hype would be bigger than the sales, if you get what I'm saying. The translation wouldn't be 1-to-1, right? Half-Life's not Fortnite. It's not Call of Duty. It's not these franchises that really across the board people are playing. Half-Life is going to skew a little bit older just because it's been so long, y'all. We had Half-Life Alyx, but again, you can only play that if you have VR. So, dude, we're going years where a whole generation's not getting a new Half-Life game. That's, of course, going to impact interest among that group. You know what I'm saying? So it would be huge. Don't get me wrong. Millions. It would sell millions. I can guarantee you that. I just don't think it would be at the level maybe some think that grew up with Half-Life, that are super invested in it. Because, again, it would need a hook to pull in those people that have no familiarity with the Half-Life franchise. Batwing. Hello, after the recent news about what happened at Bend Studio, from rejecting Days Gone 2 to forcing them to be a support studio, do you think this means creative freedom is gone with new management? Is it part of creative control to reject pitches for sequels or new IPs? Is this news normal, or should we be worried about Sony creative freedom for their studios? So here's the thing, a lot of people don't realize this. Pitches get rejected on a near constant basis, and games get canceled all the time. So it's actually not that abnormal. The thing to me that's abnormal about Days Gone 2 is what I mentioned earlier. It was profitable. It's pretty rare, at least, that you don't get one more game out of a profitable franchise, right? Like, that is pretty rare. I will straight up tell you that right now, Batwing. That is not something that you see commonly. Now, you do sometimes see that when you're on like the third entry in a franchise and the profits just aren't really growing, right? You're kind of stagnating. That's not super uncommon, but it is very uncommon that a game launches, is profitable. We know that Days Gone sold millions of copies, multiple millions of units, and then you do zero follow-up. Like, you don't even get a second chance. That is uncommon. That is weird to me that did not happen. I am very surprised by that. Clearly what this says to me is Sony really valued reviews there, which I don't know, man. Like, you value critic reviews that much? I mean, I have a lot of people in the media I really admire, but you're going to weight critic reviews that highly? That a game's profitable, and just because it's a 71 on Meta, you're not going to greenlight a sequel? That's like, that is some weirdness to me. But I think there's probably more to it than that, right? Maybe Sony sees a conflict between Days Gone and The Last of Us being zombie IPs, right? Maybe they feel there's just too much overlap there, right? Why do we have two first-party teams both making zombie-related games? So maybe that plays a factor. You know, we know that they were working on The Last of Us Part 2. We know that there's a remake coming. I'm going to just say I think there is going to be The Last of Us Part 3. So maybe Sony was in a position where they're like, hey, Days Gone did okay for us, didn't light critics on fire, and we know we're going to still really pursue this other zombie thing. Do we want two of our studios making zombie stuff? So very well that could have been a factor as well. So I wouldn't panic about creative freedom. I think Sony's going to still greenlight new IPs. I think, though, Sony's going to greenlight a new IP if you come with something that they think is going to be very big, right? It's clear Sony want big, giant brands. Ghost of Tsushima was a new IP. Horizon Zero Dawn was a new IP. You need new IP. You can't only make sequels forever. But I think you're going to have to come with something that they think's really good, right? I don't think you're going to see Sony as greenlight as many like random things. I think it's going to be, yo, is this a game we can sell 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 million units of? You get what I'm saying? And not everyone's going to like that, right? Not everyone's going to like that. Some people are going to be like, hey, why does every game have to sell 6 to 10 million copies? And I get that viewpoint, y'all. I'm not telling you you're wrong for thinking that. I'm just saying I think that's what Sony's thinking. I think Sony's like, hey, we'll give you a new IP, we'll give you a budget, but you need to convince us you're going to give us a big seller. KY Han with a 5 super chat saying, I mean, The Last of Us 2 is barely zombie related, but yeah, I think it's a bit of overlap avoidance. But Sony seems like they mainly care only about AAA stuff. It's a fair point, KY Han. Again, if it was up to me, right, if I was in Sony's shoes, which clearly I'm not, I'm some random guy on the internet, I would have greenlight Days Gone 2, right? Like I mentioned off the top, I really think that Ben would have improved a sequel on that. But, you know, it's going to vary. Bradley Ellis, hey Benji, really enjoy these streams. Keep it up. Thank you so much, Bradley Ellis. Hello. Thank you so much. Thank you for the kind comment. Thank you, that means a lot. Thank you so much. But yes, KY Han, I definitely get your viewpoint there, right? I definitely get that. I definitely get what you're saying there. The Last of Us does focus not just on zombies, right? There's a huge human element to that. In fact, you could argue that the human stories are more important there than the zombie stories. Whereas Days Gone did lean heavier into the zombie element, right? You had the hordes, you had stuff like that. But yeah, I think that maybe internally Sony looked at that, right? Maybe. There's a chance, but I don't know. I would have greenlit it, though. $4.99 here. Super chat. Thank you so much. From Ronaldo Howard. Holy cow. 3 super chats just poured in. Wow. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for the level-headed and rational take on the Sony situation here from Ronaldo. Hopefully there will be Days Gone 2 in the future. Well, thank you, Ronaldo. I try to keep it level-headed, right? I try not to be too knee-jerk with reactions. And you could argue maybe that sometimes that is going to impact your reach, right? People really like hot takes. You know, they really like hot takes. Hot takes tend to blow up on the internet. But like, I view what I do as trying to be as honest about what I cover as possible and thoughtful, right? And again, I want to make this very clear, y'all. I'm going to mess up sometimes. You're going to disagree with me sometimes, and that is completely fine. But yeah, I try to look at a situation like this one from all angles, because it's very rare, and I'm not going to say impossible, but it's very rare that you have just like a straight out villain, right? Most of these people in this situation are going to have reasons to believe that they're making the right choice, right? I guarantee you that if you asked Herman Hulse and Jim Ryan their point of view on why Days Gone 2 is not a thing, they're going to give you an answer that they really believe, they really truly think that they are making the right choice. And I guarantee you, if you ask somebody like Jeff Ross or Ben Studio, if you know they had a great idea for Days Gone 2 and they really could have executed it, I'm sure that they're going to tell you the same thing. So I try to look at it from all points of view and try to be level-headed about it. I'm going to disagree on some stuff, but you know, it is what it is. They have their reasons for it. Aaron Ho with a 25 here. Thank you so much, Aaron. Hi Benji, except making excellent game after game like Sony does, what more can Microsoft do to make the gap closer? Or what mistake would Sony make? Ooh, this is a great question, right? Here's the thing, Aaron. I actually think you hit the nail on the head on what Microsoft needs to do. Microsoft needs to start hitting home runs with their first-party studios, okay? Because I feel like Microsoft has set themselves up very well when it comes to services, when it comes to, now I would say even PR. Like Microsoft's on a great run with messaging, but what is the biggest gap still? If you look at Microsoft, what is the thing that is the glaring thing that always gets brought up? Where are the games? And when people say games, you know what they mean. Where are those big tentpole AAA games, right? We're seeing a lot of projects out of Microsoft, some that are very successful, Flight Simulator. Like, we are seeing good stuff out of Microsoft. I'm not trying to sit here and tell you Xbox has no games, but the number one thing they can do, because I feel like they have everything else set up right. They have great hardware. They have really good services with Game Pass. I feel like their messaging and branding is very good right now. They need the games, okay? They need the games. Halo Infinite needs to be really freaking good. Fable needs to be really freaking good. Hellblade 2 needs to be really good. You see what I'm saying? They need those games that stand on their own, that get the world's attention, like stuff like Horizon and The Last of Us, for example, have done. Now, does Microsoft need to make the exact same kinds of games as Sony? I would say no, right? I think it's important to have some of those, but you also don't want to just literally make the same things your competitors make, right? You want something that's a little different. But that's the main thing. Their studios now need to execute. Everything else is set up well. They need the games. KY Han here with a 5. Thank you so much, KY. I think that's your second super chat. Thank you so much. I actually think this will open up a path for Microsoft to start appealing to mid-sized devs in the West and Japan to push smaller, more niche games. Ooh, that's interesting. That's interesting, right? Are you saying like the Sony situation? Potentially, right? And potentially Japan. Okay, if these rumors are true about Kojima Productions, which again, I have no idea. I mentioned in the last chat that I had heard that rumor, okay? And I stand by that. I had heard it, but I have no idea if that's true. I've heard it, Grub heard it, so multiple people are hearing it, but who knows if there's any truth to that or not. But if Sony is, really focusing on AAA, there's no doubt that that leaves a potential opportunity for Microsoft to come in on something like a Kojima Productions, on something like, pick a mid-tier size studio. And I know Kojima's AAA, right? Kojima's very big, but we don't really know exactly what his next project's going to be. Is it going to be as big of a blowout as Death Stranding? Is it going to be a little more mid-sized? We don't know. We have literally no idea what his project is. But if Sony's really focusing on hardcore safe bets, KY, you are right. There is a potential there. There's definitely a potential there. I would say Outriders is a prime example, right? Microsoft spending that money to get the game on Game Pass. I mean, People Can Fly isn't necessarily the studio you think of when you think of these big, giant AAA teams, right? They are getting there now. They're up to 300 employees. But giving that money and that funding to that, which I know was published by Square Enix, but of course some of that would have went to Outriders as well, and People Can Fly. There's an opportunity, KY. There definitely is. Holy cow, the super chats are just pouring in today. So I apologize to the free questions. I'm probably not going to be able to hit as many. Don't worry, I'm still going to be streaming for a while, everyone. These streams usually go right around an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half. We're at 45-ish minutes now. So I'm going to still be going for probably at least another, half hour. So don't panic. And I really appreciate all the super chats. I'm just saying I might not be able to hit as many free questions. Benji here with a 5. Is Sony becoming like Nintendo with its studios? Retro and Monolith projects were paused to support Mario Kart and Zelda games like Bend with Naughty Dog. That's an actually very interesting question, Benji. That's a very interesting question. Because you could make the argument that Nintendo is actually, like you say, in a very similar position. If you look at Nintendo, they haven't been exactly the most fostering of new IP, right? They always have a new twist on their games. And yes, they do some new IP. I'm not sitting here trying to tell you Nintendo makes no new IP. But it is similar in that, yeah, it is a lot of Mario. It is a lot of Zelda. It is a lot of Pokemon. It is a lot of, Mario Kart, right? Smash Bros, the 50 different kinds of Mario games. So, yeah, that is a fair point, Benji, that Nintendo actually does rely a lot on safe, established brands. Now, the thing that I will definitely give Nintendo is they don't let those franchises stagnate, right? Every Zelda you play has a lot different than the Zelda before. Each Mario game tends to do a lot of changing up. And, Nintendo's games, even if they're in the same franchises, are often seen as revolutionary in terms of what they bring new to the table. So big, shout out to them on that. They are a very creative and unique company, and they do foster new IP, but they do rely a lot on big brands, right? And that it does seem to be a situation you are seeing Sony lean into now, right? They've always had a brand thing, but I think you're going to see that even stronger now, right? I think you're going to really see Sony lean into. I mean, look at The Last of Us. They're spinning that into a TV show. They're spinning Uncharted into a movie. You think you're not going to get another Uncharted game and another The Last of Us game, y'all? They're making a TV show and a movie. You don't do that and then just abandon the games. You're going to get another Uncharted game and you're going to get another The Last of Us in some way, right? Now we know that there's a Last of Us remake, so at the very least you get that. And at the very least, you're going to get some kind of Uncharted spinoff eventually. They are clearly leaning into this brand thing. But you are going to see new IP too. I'm pretty confident that's what Sony Santa Monica is doing right now. Pretty confident they're building a new IP. So, besides God of War. All right. Super chats are cleared for now. Thank you for a great turnout, everyone. Thanks for coming to the chat. I love doing these. I appreciate the positivity too. Everyone's always so amazing in these chats and ask great questions. Like this live chat would literally be nothing without good questions, right? Oh, and Gary here actually has a great comment right after what I just talked about. Like, this is great. This couldn't be better timing. There was an article a few days ago that mentioned that Nintendo will be focusing on newer IPs moving forward, then rely on its established franchises. Boom. Do you think this is a good move for Nintendo? Yes and no. Well, listen, not a no, but they still do need to focus on their established brands, right? There needs to be another Mario. There needs to be another Zelda. But I think a healthy company does both, right? You do new IP and you also do brands. You have some people sometimes kind of say it's all about new IP, right? Like, that's it. Like, all I want to see is new games. I don't want to see sequels. Well, you have to have sequels, right? Because even if you don't care about the sequels, if it's a game that's selling millions and millions and millions of copies, that means there's millions and millions and millions of people that want another one. So you, of course, need to have big sequels. But a healthy brand balances both. You get those big sequels, and then you also get new IP. Here's what I don't want to see, okay? Here's what I don't want to see from Sony. I don't want to see them go into a situation like Microsoft was a few years ago, where it was literally, you all know the meme, Halo, Gears, Forza. Halo, Gears, Forza, right? Like, that's all it was. It was Halo, Gears, Forza. Like, they were literally just cycling a couple franchises, and you didn't see a whole lot else. Microsoft is clearly abandoning that strategy through all their acquisitions, and now they're going to have a ton of brands and a ton of new IPs from some of these teams. But I don't want to see that. I don't want to see a situation where we're only seeing The Last of Us, Horizon, Spider-Man, right? You know what I'm getting at, God of War. Like, we do need new stuff too. You need a healthy balance. So for Nintendo, I would say they also at times fall into too much depending on brands. You need both. You need both to be truly healthy. Because here's the thing. For every new IP, you have an opportunity that new IP becomes your next Horizon Zero Dawn, becomes your next, I mean, at one point, God of War was a new IP. At one point, Mario was a new IP. So you always want to foster new things as well, because those new things in the future, they can become your main things. Okay. I think we just had 2 more super chats drop. Highlander001 with a 10. Thank you so much, Highlander. With the rumor of Game Pass going to Switch, what will this do to Sony, if anything? Well, here's the thing. That is a crazy rumor, right? I've been trying to figure out what exactly is going on with this Nintendo Microsoft rumor mill, right? You guys know me. I don't sit there and try and spend a ton of time trying to find every single rumor or scoop. I don't do actually basically any of that. I hear a rumor when someone comes and finds me and tells me the rumor. But clearly, I think there is evidence that something's going on with Microsoft and Nintendo. They've been pretty chummy for years now, right? Like years this has been. I mean, you literally have Microsoft owned characters in Smash. They always play friends. So, I think there's something there. Is it Game Pass? Whew, that would be crazy, right? That would be crazy. If it's Game Pass, it has to also mean xCloud because these games aren't going to run natively on Switch. Maybe you can get a couple, right? I'm not going to say you can't get any of these games to run natively on Switch, but you're not going to get Halo Infinite running on Switch. It's just not going to happen. Not natively, right? It's hard for me to envision that kind of scenario. So it probably would mean xCloud as well. I'll tell you what, it would be a massive deal. I mean, if this happened, it would be enormous. It would be enormous for Microsoft and potentially enormous for Nintendo. Now, of the two, clearly, I think Microsoft gets off the better here because they're just essentially getting their stuff on another platform, which is like instant access to, more users, which is really what Microsoft cares about now. Don't get me wrong, they want their games to sell well, but what they really want to do is drive Game Pass subscribers. I think if you gave your Microsoft a choice, I'm not kidding you here. If you gave them a choice of sell 3 million copies, or instead of those 3 million sales, you get 5+ million Game Pass subscribers. I think they're going to choose the Game Pass subs because Game Pass is really their future. So it'd be big. Nintendo, I feel like, gets the less out of the deal, though they do get one advantage, and depending on how extensive this is, they might get more third-party support they would not typically get, right? If third-party would be part of this, not just Microsoft games, then all of a sudden you're opening up games that would never appear on Switch appearing. So it's interesting. If I bet on it, it's hard for me to say that that's likely, but it would be huge. What it would mean for Sony, I really don't think it's that big a deal. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think so. Listen, people are buying PlayStations because they love PlayStation, right? So I don't think it'd be that big a deal. I don't think it would hurt PlayStation much, actually. Not much in that scenario. It would just boost for Microsoft. And KY Han, I think with your third super chat. Holy cow here, KY Han. Thank you so much. That's crazy. Third one. $10 here from KY. I will ask, though, do you think that the platform holders get complacent after a good generation? It's always a risk. Always a risk. It feels like all three rest on their laurels for a generation and get lazy after dominating the last. Well, that's always going to be a risk, right? With anything. You're always going to run a risk with success that you get complacent. Everyone that watches my chat knows, if you watch it regularly, I'm a huge combat sports fan. And you're going to go, Ben, this would be Benji tying combat sports and gaming together, the two things he loves. But let me tell you something here, KY, because there actually is a direct correlation here that I'm going to bring up. One of the most common things, I hate to say it, that you see in combat sports, whether that's boxing, whether that's MMA, you will see a champion, right? Somebody that on the way up is very hungry, right? They're very, very hungry. You see that guy whenever he's a contender, or that girl, they have the fire underneath them. They're going into the fight very aggressive, very, they're wanting to get to that championship position. They want to get to the top because that is the goal. That's when you get your money. And you do see, oftentimes someone makes the top, they get complacent, and then they have the fall, right? This is very common. Anyone that has watched combat sports can tell you they've seen a dozen examples of this at least. So that's anything. That's going to apply to business as well. Anytime you're super successful, you do run the risk of getting complacent, right? You think, well, what I'm working got me here. I can just kind of now chill. I can kind of do my own thing. But as we see in combat sports, what happens? If you're on the top and you're complacent, those coming up that are the hungry guy that you were, right? You were the hungry contender. Now they're the hungry contender. And they're watching you and they're learning from what got you there. So they are learning, right? And they're going to come at you with something better than what you faced maybe on the way up. And so you're seeing the same thing in business, right? Business, there's a very similar correlation. The people below you are learning from things that you did to get ahead. And they are, of course, going to use that to also try to propel them to success. So do I think Sony here is being complacent? Not necessarily, right? I think people are freaking out more than they will be as soon as we see PS5 games. I'm telling you, I think this narrative changes a lot when people see God of War and Horizon and things like this. I really, 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 really think so. But they're not above criticism. So it is a risk, right? It's definitely a risk. You're absolutely running a risk of getting complacent anytime you're at the top. The truly best, right? The people that become the greatest of all time fighters are the ones that keep evolving. You never get complacent. That's how you get a long reign as champion, because you're not just sitting still. You're always changing. You're always bringing new things to the table. You're always learning from your mistakes. So to stay on top, you can't be complacent. You absolutely have to keep evolving. But it's a risk, yeah. You're running a risk. Paul Mayhofer here, I think he's asked several times, asking about Elden Ring. Yo, Paul, I'm not the insider guy. I hate to say this. I don't know. I don't know with Elden Ring, y'all. I don't know. I don't think it's this year, if that's what you're asking. I mean, if I had to make a bet, and this is not insider info, I don't think Elden Ring's this year. I think it probably was originally intended to be this year, or maybe even earlier, but at the very least this year. But I think that's highly unlikely. I said this in a previous chat. I think most of the games that are coming in 2021, are coming in 2021. I think there's very few announcements left on the table in terms of big AAA games, right? Of course, you're going to get AAs and indies. And I won't even be surprised if you see, one, maybe two AAA games slip in still. But I think most of your AAA games that are coming this year, you already know. Because we're already now in mid-April. Optimistically, if your game comes out in December, you only have an 8-month marketing window. And you can get away with less. We see sometimes people do like a 6-month marketing window. But again, that's if your game's in December, right? I mean, if your game's going to be in September, we're looking at a very short marketing cycle now. So I think most of them. I think most of the games that are this year, you already know they're this year. I would not expect a lot of shocking announcements for 2021 games, okay? Elden Ring is probably 2022. Abarios here with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Abarios. Do you think Outriders' success will encourage third-party publishers to put their games on Game Pass day one? Yes. I know MLB The Show is doing it as well. Abarios. Yes. 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 I don't know how many times I want to say that. If I'm a third-party publisher and I see what Outriders did, yes. Now, I'm going to say something that I also said, though, in the last chat. I think it was the last chat. I still think we need more data before we can say single player games don't potentially get cannibalized by Game Pass, okay? I think if either runs the risk, a multiplayer online game or a single player game, I'm going to say a single player game has a higher risk ceiling to being cannibalized by Game Pass. The reasons are pretty obvious, but I'll kind of say them. A single player game, oftentimes, many people, you're going to play through that game one time, and then you're done with it, right? This is very, very common. Very, very common. It's not common that people replay games multiple times. Now, of course, we all have that game or two that we do, and some people replay games more than others. But by and large, most people, you can just look at the data. Look at completion rates on games. Most people aren't just sitting there replaying single-player titles. So an online game is a lot different. If you're an online multiplayer game, games aren't on Game Pass permanently. Sometimes they're there for very long amounts of times, but you don't really know how long. So if you think you're going to be playing a game for 6 to 12 months online, you're probably more likely to buy it if it's on Game Pass because you don't know when it's going to leave. So you're going to own it. You know you're going to be playing it for a long time. Also, if it's multiplayer and you want to play with your friends and you have Game Pass and they don't want Game Pass, you're going to convince some of those people potentially to go out and buy Outriders to play with you or any multiplayer game. So you're also going to get probably some I can't say the word. You know what I'm saying, though. Additional sales from people that are playing that game online, telling their friends to pick it up, to play it online with them, and then they buy some of that. You don't necessarily get that effect with single player, right? With single player, you might buy the game and tell a friend it's awesome, but you're not going to play it together. So how many sales is that going to boost? Potentially some. We just don't necessarily have the data yet. So I would say if you're an online focused game, you're going to do a bunch of multiplayer, a bunch of online. I'll tell you what, Game Pass looks really attractive, very attractive for day one. So do I think you're going to see Outriders and MLB be the last AAA games you see on the service day one? Nope. You're going to see them. I can promise you that. Now, is it going to be every single month? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say you don't necessarily see a AAA game every single month, day one on the service, but you are absolutely going to see it on a semi-regular basis, I would say. All right. Super chats are cleared. Holy cow. What a great chat this has been today. I hope you guys are having fun. I'm having a blast. All right. Justin T. The Apex Legends game director Chad Greiner mentioned that in Season 9, next season, there will be a lot of Titanfall content coming into the game. Do you think there may be a hint Respawn could be working on Titanfall 3? I hate to say it, I'm going to say no, Justin, but I hope I'm completely wrong. Okay, Titanfall 2 literally is one of the best first-person shooter campaigns I have ever played in my life. The multiplayer was freaking great for both of those games, Titanfall 1 and 2. But Apex Legends just prints so much money. You know, do you really want to pull devs away from that to work on Titanfall? I mean, I hope so, yo. I hope. But I'm just saying, I'm looking at it from EA's perspective. If you're EA, you probably want those resources on Apex, right? Instead of building a whole nother game. So I think your future of Titanfall, unfortunately, is going to be through Apex Legends. Now, I'm not ruling out Titanfall 3 eventually, but do I think it's in development right now? I'm going to say no unless Vince Zampella is really pushing for it, because all reports are coming out of EA is that Vince is getting a lot of leeway and like ownership because of how successful he was with Respawn inside of EA. So if he's like really pushing it, like if Vince is sitting there like, listen, we want to make Titanfall 3, I actually think you would see EA back Vince on that. But if he's kind of just like, you know, maybe one day, but I'm not like, it's not a passion of mine to make sure Titanfall 3 is happening right now, I don't think you'll see it. Not soon. Can be. NPD didn't really say anything about Xbox sales. I know they're still selling out, but how do Series X and S sales compare to One sales at the same point in their lives? I actually don't have that exact data point for NPD. So I hate to say it, Ken, I can't give you a great answer on that. All I can tell you is that in the US, Series X and S are still instant sellouts. So, you know, they're selling whatever they manufacture. I know that in overseas market, that's not necessarily the case. Series X, from what I understand, looking at charts and talking to people that live in those markets, that Series X is still rapidly selling out, but Series S, not so much. Like, you can actually find Series S. Here in the US, you can't, okay? You can when a restock hits, but that's it. The restock hits, we sell the Series X's and S's, and then they're gone again. So whatever Xbox's sales are right now via NPD lifetime, they are going to be literally how many consoles they manufactured for the US. So I hate to say it, Ken, I don't have the exact number there. If I did, I would give you a comparison. I wouldn't leak the data because I don't leak NPD's data because it's their proprietary data, and I'm not going to leak something out that, you know, it's literally how NPD survives, right? People pay for that. But you know, I don't have it. I don't have all the NPD numbers right now. Sometimes I do. I mean, I'll just be frank with you. Sometimes I know exactly what all the NPD data is. Right now, I don't know. I don't pay for NPD. I'm an hourly retail employee, y'all. I do not have the money for NPD. Ah. Benji with a 5 super chat. A Reuters article implied Ubisoft could be targeted. Because of poor shares and operating margin performance, what is most likely? Ubi or Square Enix? Okay, yeah, let's touch on Square Enix, okay? Because this blew up last night and it was chaos and crazy. So we've had Square Enix come out now and say flat out that they have not been approached. There's nobody trying to buy them. It's up to you to decide if you believe them or not. I tend to believe them because this was an official statement. Here's the thing. It was like so specific that I am inclined to believe them. Now, we see companies lie all the time, okay? Lying, but I'm going to say lying with quotes. Plausible deniability. You see that very often. But I would think if there really was acquisition talks on the table, the way that Square Enix would have phrased it is more like this. I think they would have said, there are no imminent acquisitions in the works. You can say that. You are telling the truth. But you could also still be working out an acquisition deal because you said no imminent, right? You put that word in there. And you can argue, well, we said no imminent deal. We meant that there's no deal on the table about to be signed right now. We didn't say anything about a month from now. But their wording was like so specific. They literally said, we have not been approached by a third party to sell the business or a part of the business. So that would be quite the lie. If they really are being pursued for acquisition right now, that is pretty bold. I mean, that is like some bold stuff to lie about. You don't even really give yourself too much plausible deniability. You can still argue a little bit of it, but like, so I'm gonna say I don't buy that Square Enix rumor. I think it was really just because it came out of banks too. I think it was just pumping stock. I hate to say it. Who is more likely between Ubisoft or Square Enix? I'm actually gonna say Ubisoft, to be perfectly honest with you. I think Ubisoft's way more attractive, way more. Like if I'm Microsoft or Sony and I have my choice between Ubisoft or Square Enix, y'all, I'm taking Ubisoft. Now, don't get me wrong. Square Enix makes amazing games. They make some really big games, but Square Enix is also like, you get a lot of extra baggage with Square Enix, first of all, because they're, as most Japanese publishers are, involved in several different businesses. So you're going to take all of that with them as well. You also have games, this really applies to Microsoft, that a large chunk of their sales do come from Japan, right? Final Fantasy, very popular in the West, but it's still selling over 1 million units in Japan. Right? Final Fantasy VII Remake and 15 both sold over 1 million in Japan when you count digital. So if you're Xbox and you bought Square Enix, you're essentially killing those brands. I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, Xbox sells some Square Enix games, but they primarily sell on PlayStation. Just flat out. You're talking like 70+% of sales on PlayStation. It's not one of those scenarios, sometimes 80, right? Sometimes 80+%. So it's not like a franchise like a Ubisoft game where, I mean, if you own Ubisoft, and I'm talking about anyone, Sony, Microsoft, whatever, if you buy Ubisoft, those games sell across the board. They sell in tons of different markets. Assassin's Creed is huge all over the place. It's huge on PlayStation. It's huge on Xbox. Rainbow Six, it's huge on Xbox. It's huge on PlayStation. I mean, I could go down the list, right? Like, their games are just big across the board. Whereas Square Enix, you're buying a awesome publisher that make great, good games, but it's a little bit more specialized. And it's a little bit more focused on like JRPGs. You get more breadth with Ubisoft. And I know that Square Enix has Western studios as well, but I'm going to be frank with you. Those Western studios aren't really delivering right now in terms of sales successes. Really, most of Square Enix's current success is coming out of their Japanese teams. Whereas Ubisoft, if you buy them, you have so much to work with. So actually, of those two, I think Ubisoft's more likely because I think they're more attractive. I think they're the one that someone would be more interested in. Now, do I think either one's going to happen? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say, again, publishers are expensive, y'all. Square Enix would be a minimum of $10 billion. They have a $7 billion market cap. You never are going to pay market cap. You're going to pay more than market cap. So, dude, at minimum, you're probably spending $10 billion. Now, is that impossible? No. Look at Microsoft, right? They throw freaking money around. I'm just saying, anytime you start to get up into those ridiculously high numbers, your odds go down. So, but yeah, of the two, Ubisoft's more attractive in my opinion. I think most people at Microsoft and Sony would tell you the same thing, to be honest. I mean, I think most of them would say the same thing. Highlander001 with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Highlander. Microsoft acquiring ZeniMax for $7.5 billion. Nuance for $19 billion. Yeah, we were just talking about this, right? All this money Microsoft's willing to spend. And Discord for $10 billion. Do you still see them going for developers for Xbox? Yes. In fact, I know they are. So, yeah. Yup. At least I know that they still have interest. I can tell you that flat out. Not even as like super insider stuff. Yes, Microsoft, I can flat out tell you, is still looking at companies. Do I think you're going to see them go on another spree like they did? I think that's actually pretty unlikely. Microsoft bought so much in the last 2 years. I don't think the next 2 years look like that, right? I don't think you see them go out and buy another freaking 10, 15 studios. But do I think we're still in a position you're going to see another 1, 2, 3 potentially studios come to Xbox? Yep. Game Pass is going to be a beast for them, and you need a lot of freaking studios if you're going to be having... Listen, people throw around the Netflix of gaming, and you can't exactly call it that because it is a bit of a different model than Netflix. There are similarities, but it's a little bit different, right? But why is Netflix so successful? Because there is literally constantly new things to watch on Netflix. Constantly. Literally constantly. There's new movies. Constantly. There's new TV shows all the time. Now it's really driven by Netflix originals. Microsoft wants steady, constant new releases hitting Game Pass. And the way to feed that beast is to have a whole bunch of studios. So, yeah, they're not done. They're not done. If the right opportunity's there, they're going to buy them. Yep, they're going to buy them. Now, again, I'm not saying necessarily publishers, but independent teams, yeah. If they think it's worth it, they got the right deal, the right partner, they're not done. Okay. Since this has been such an insane chat, it's been amazing. I'm going to go for like 10 more minutes, y'all. Like 10 more minutes. Okay? We're going to wrap up right around an hour and a half. So I'm going to start rapid firing a few questions. Some of today's answers have been long because we've been talking about like some really, like some big topics, right? So I hope I haven't bored you with some of my answers. I know they've been a bit long-winded, but we've been talking about some big stuff. So let me rapid fire. I got to be selective. Let me get going. Let me rock out some questions before we bounce. This is a good one from Silence PP7, and I want to hit this one. Silence is always here being supportive. Could Demon Souls and The Last of Us remakes indicate that Sony plans to invest more into PS3 remakes in the future? Uncharted 1, Infamous, Resistance, and Killzone 2 would all make sense. I do think you'll see more remakes from them. Will it strictly be PS3 games? Is it going to be those ones you mentioned? I don't necessarily know. But you're going to see more remakes, right? Remakes have been proven to pay off now for the most part. I mean, honestly, remakes seem to hit more than they miss. Look at how good Crash Trilogy did. Spider-Man Trilogy did, or not Spider-Man, Spyro Trilogy did great for Activision, right? Those two were big successes for Activision. You had, I think Mass Effect Legendary Edition is going to do very well, by the way. Metrics I'm saying look great. You had... Demon Souls do very, very well for them. I mean, I could go down the list, right? I could just sit here and, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1+2. Like, I could name like a million remakes that have done well. By and large, if the game was beloved before, the remakes tend to hit. So I do think it makes business sense, and I do think you will see them explore some of them. Out of the ones you list, I would say Resistance is actually the most prime candidate. I see like way more people talk about Resistance than like anything, wanting Resistance back. So I would say Resistance or Infamous. I'd be shocked if you see Killzone remakes. And apparently they tried to do an Uncharted 1 remake. They tried to pitch it, but they thought it'd be too expensive. So Uncharted actually is probably unlikely just because we know that one was already shot down. Resistance to me makes the most sense out of that list if they do one of those. Chris Jenkins, is Mass Effect Legendary day one for you? Abso-freaking-lutely. I love Mass Effect. Yes. Day one. Day one, 100%. If you've never played a Mass Effect game, I'm telling you right now, if you love sci-fi, if you like space, if you like RPGs, straight up, Mass Effect 1 through 3 is some of the best sci-fi you will ever play. I am just flat out telling you that. Put it this way. The sci-fi in Mass Effect is so good. I listen to a lot of like futurists on YouTube, right? Isaac Arthur is one of them I listen to. John Michael Gaudier, right? These are guys that talk about science, and then they talk about potentially like what's going to be in the future, and they bring up Mass Effect, right? And these are guys that like, it's what they do. Like literally their focus is on the future. And yeah, they talk about it all the freaking time. So that's how good the sci-fi is in Mass Effect. So I definitely recommend it. If you have any like for Mass Effect or for sci-fi at all, and you never played them, play Mass Effect. You might not like the ending of 3. I'll warn you that. You might not like the ending, but the ride is going to be amazing. Holy cow, we just had, I think, a giant super chat drop. Holy cow. Toke Finn here with a 200 DKK. Whoa, Toke Finn. Wow. Wow, thank you. That is a beefy super chat. Thank you so much. Did Microsoft buy Bethesda to kickstart a secret VR division? Toke, you know what? In all of my chats, I don't know that I have specifically had someone ask me about Bethesda and VR at Microsoft. So this is actually a great point out by you, Toke, or Toke. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. So did they specifically buy Bethesda to kickstart VR? I'm going to say no to that because I think the main reason was really for those IP and their history together, particularly around Elder Scrolls and Fallout, okay? And we know that, I mean, for a long history, Bethesda and Microsoft have been very close, right? I mean, Todd Howard has been on the Microsoft stage presenting Bethesda games multiple times. They've had timed exclusive deals with games and DLCs in the past. Like, they just had a very long history, and this was like a perfect partnership, I think, and a perfect timing for it to work out. So I'm going to say that like VR itself was not the main thing. However, I can assure you that Microsoft definitely looks at the fact that Bethesda has a history making VR projects, so they have that talent there that are familiar with it, and then B, a technology around VR. So trust me when I say that Microsoft is going to look at that as a plus. Microsoft right now isn't, from what it appears, super invested into the VR space, right? They basically, all of their comments or public comments about it is like VR is not something that they're immediately looking at. However, Oculus is gaining very high momentum. I'm just telling you that right now. Oculus Quest 2 is doing amazing, right? Quest 2 has already outsold every single VR headset that Oculus has ever made combined, okay? And that was with the Quest 1 being a big success for them. So Quest 2 has been a great success for Oculus. You have Sony already publicly announced that they're going to make PSVR 2, right? It's in the works. We actually even know some stuff about it, including its controllers. So trust me when I say, Tokefin, that if Microsoft sees that VR is seriously gaining momentum, there's no way they ignore it, okay? There's no way. Right now, Microsoft's still just in that wait and see mode. They're kind of just watching the market to see if it takes off to a level they feel is worth the investment. But if it does, Yes, they will. And B, trust me, Bethesda having A, people that have worked on VR games, and B, technology made for VR games is definitely going to be seen as a plus, without a doubt. Okay. JCat here with a 2 super chat saying I made it for the end of the live chat. Thank you so much, JCat. Thank you so much for the 2. Thank you for showing up. There is an insane amount of nice comments in here. It's about what's fair saying, dude, you cool. Thank you so much. Viv FTP saying, Benji, thank you for your stream. Thank you so much. There's a question there too. Any thoughts on Sony's plans for PS Now and their Game Pass competitor? They've said they'll talk about it in the future. What direction do you think they'll go in? I've answered this before, Viv, so I'm going to make this quick. But I don't think you're going to see, the AAA flagship single player games day one on whatever their vision is. I just can't see that, okay? I cannot see that, or at the very least, I cannot see that for a very long time, right? Like, not now. They're selling too many units of games. Look at how big Spider-Man just was, right? Miles Morales just now has been a juggernaut. Ghost of Tsushima has been a juggernaut. So I don't think they're in any rush to put that stuff day one. But don't be surprised if you see some smaller projects day one on whatever this thing is that they're envisioning. Like, for example, like Pixel Opus's next game. I think that's how you say it. The people that made Concrete Genie. Don't be surprised if you see some of their smaller stuff day one on that. Don't be surprised if you potentially see multiplayer focused projects day one on that. But what I will say is, to me, it would be shocking if you see the next God of War day one, or you see, the Last of Us remake on their day one. That would shock me. I'm not going to tell you it's impossible, because we're in some crazy days right now where the video game industry is like nonstop doing crazy stuff, but I would be floored. That would blow me away. So I would not expect that. Matt Duffy with an MMA question. Definitely want to hit an MMA question. It's actually boxing. Good to see you, first of all, Matt Duffy. What is up? Thank you for always being in chat. Benji, Jake Paul or Ben Askren? Who you got? Stay hydrated, bro. We got your back 100%. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you for always being in chats and supportive. Here's my thoughts really quick. First of all, make no mistake here. Ben Askren is the fighter. Jake Paul is not. Okay? Now, I actually want to say that Jake Paul, I think, actually has some boxing talent. I mean, I really think so. I think that this guy, whether you hate him or not, right? I'm not sitting here telling you need to like Jake Paul. I actually do think he has some skills, and I actually do think the guy's working hard at it. But what I mean when I say that Ben Askren's a fighter, Ben Askren has been in there with other professionals fighting pros for years. Okay, so we have no doubt who is the better competitor, who is the one who has proven to be a fighter. It's Ben Askren. However, I don't think his boxing is near as good as Jake Paul's, okay? Because as good of a fighter as Ben Askren was, his game depended almost zero on stand-up. It was about getting you down and smashing you on the floor, right? It had almost nothing to do with striking. Striking, he avoided it as much as possible. And if he used it, it was really just to set up a takedown. Whereas Jake is only working on his hands. I think Jake is the better boxer, but I think Ben is the better fighter. So if this fight is short, all right, if it's a 2-round fight, 1, 2, 3-round fight, I'm going to tell you Jake's the one who wins that, probably by knockout. But if this fight drags out, if we hit those later rounds, don't be surprised if Jake slows down and Ben starts taking over. So if I had to pick, I'm going to pick Jake actually by knockout. But don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if Ben gets him late. Okay, I want to do 2 more questions, then I got to end the chat. 2 more questions. 2, and then I got to go. But this has been an amazing chat. You've all been amazing, but I got to go. All right, hour and a half is going to be my limit. So I got 2 more questions. Let me pick 2 more really quick. Ralph is just asking, Square Enix debunked the rumors about a potential takeover today. However, Tencent, Sony, and Microsoft are among some of the companies that could afford to buy them. Do you see any of them do a move? Well, Ralph, like I said, to me, in my opinion, Square is not the most attractive publisher. I'm going to say no, right? I would think that if a company is out there willing to spend that kind of money, they're looking more at, like we mentioned earlier, like a Ubisoft, you know. I'll tell you what, and even if I was going to go for a Japanese company, I'd go Capcom before I went Square Enix, to be honest with you. 100%. 100%. I'm just straight up saying that. And I love Square Enix's games, y'all. I loved Final Fantasy VII Remake. But if you're giving me the choice between owning, you know, like Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts, or you're giving me the choice behind owning Resident Evil and Street Fighter and Monster Hunter, and I mean, dude, look at the IP. I mean, I'm going Capcom. So again, those Japanese companies are going to be harder to acquire. But I'm just saying, I think Square Enix, of all the publishers, actually is more on the low end of being attractive. And even if you're going to go Japan, I think Capcom's way more attractive than Square Enix personally. Just, I mean, I think so. I think their IP are more valuable. I really do. Like right now, if you would have asked me the same question, you know, maybe a few years ago, my answer would probably be different. But with the run Capcom's on right now, since Monster Hunter went nuclear, since Resident Evil got into a great place, you know, I'm going Capcom, y'all. I'm going Capcom. All right, and then one last question, and I got to go. Okay, I'm going to end it here with Sun. I don't know how to say that last name. Hi, Benji. Do you have sales figures from the last Sony game's revenue figures on PC? How good did they perform in terms of sales? Maybe Days Gone doing good on PC might change Sony's mind. So here's what I'll say, son. I don't have those exact units. Here's what we do know, though. In terms of like the Sony game, right? Full on Sony, Horizon Zero Dawn. It wasn't exactly like the most insane performer on Steam. For example, its all-time concurrent peak is 56,000. If just to compare that to a truly large launch, which was Outriders, you know, it did triple that, basically. Close, right? Definitely over double. And so, I mean, Outriders did, which was a new IP, did over double in terms of concurrent players, which of course concurrent players actually does have a tie to sales. Now, are they 1-to-1? No. But if you're putting up insane concurrent user numbers, that also means you're selling a freaking ton of copies. But 50 is nothing to laugh at, right? 56,000 is a good number, right? That's actually bigger than some of the Microsoft games that have been on Steam. It's not as good as the biggest ones, right? Sea of Thieves has been bigger than that. Master Chief Collection's been bigger than that. But it is big. Oh, man, I think my computer's messing up. What a way to end, right? I'm getting issues here right at the end. However, to end this, Horizon clearly did well. We've seen revenue figures from Death Stranding, which was not published by PlayStation, but was an exclusive that went there, and it's making good revenue. So here's the thing. I don't know that Days Gone would, if it blew up, I'm totally crashing right now. So it's a good thing this was the last question. But, yeah, will Days Gone, if it's a huge success on PC, bring it back? I would say no unless it's a huge success, okay? It needs to be much bigger than Horizon Zero Dawn was on PC, I think, to even entice them to explore Days Gone 2. Now, if you see this blow up, it sells literal multiple millions on PC, I think we're in a different situation, okay? That